Okay, we're going to try and build a Glade Gui, or at least attempt to try and build. Just learning this myself, and I'm going to pass on the information that I found out from just playing around with it and see if we can work it out. So I've created a new project called ggui.glade. I've hit the save button, put it in a folder in projects Glade, and this is what you should get, which is nothing. So the first thing we're going to add is a GDK window. So we have this window here, and we can preview the window, see what it looks like by hitting this button here. Now, because of the screen, the way I've got OBS set up, it's so recording at 1920 by 1080. My screen's an ultra wide, so I've just set this off to one side. But anyway, that's what it looks like. As you can see, it doesn't represent the size of this. It's quite small. So there's two things I want to do here. The first thing I want to do is make sure that when this GUI is showing, that it's always going to be in center of the screen, so it comes up in the middle. The other thing is I'm going to set a default size, so I'm going to say 650 by 350. So that means when this GUI is showing, it's going to be 650 pixels wide by 350 pixels high, and it's going to show in the center. And we're going to give this an ID. I'm going to call this H window. The reason I'm calling this H window is from our previous examples with Python. When we call the main class here, we come over here, we're in the main class, we take our GUI.glade file, which I've called this one the same. We build it from the Glade file, then we connect the signals, blah blah blah, and then what we want to do is link the window ID here in Python, so then we can use this H window to connect the delete event, quit event, and other things that we want to do, like show the window. So that's basically all we're doing, is using the ID to get the object, and then we can show the window, we can connect stuff and do all that. So it's important to know that ID. So the other thing you'll notice now when we run this is it's in the center of the window. It's quite bigger, but it doesn't look anything the size of that one that we are looking at in the designer. So what I typically do is try and get a rough idea the size that it actually is, just by putting that over the top and then moving this around. I'm sure there's a better method, but this is what I've been using. So then when I add buttons and that, it's going to be roughly about the same size when we run the GUI. So the other thing you'll notice here, it's got a title bar, it's got these minimize, maximize and close. What we're going to do for this particular one, just to demonstrate it, is we're going to use client-side decorations, and when we click that box there, you'll notice that there's two spaces now, two workspaces, and in this top one we're going to put a custom header bar. So we put header, it's a GDK header bar, and we put it up there, and you can see it's segregated into two. There's a space here and a space there. Number of items, if we take that to 0, it takes up the whole area up there, which we want, and we'll just call this header bar. The title, we can put Arco Linux. Like that. And we call it the Arco application, just for an example. And so now when we run it, we have this custom header bar where it's bold, it's a bit bigger text up the top and smaller text or smaller font down the bottom. But you'll notice that our minimize, maximize and close button is gone. So we'll just right click on the header bar and close there. To fix that, we're going to show Windows controls, and now when we run it, we have the window controls there. So the next thing we're going to do, so we have our window, we've got our header bar inside the window up here, and we've got this space here which is part of the window. Now what we could do is put something directly on here, but what will happen is that component, which is a label, will take up this whole window space. And so what happens is when you run it, it's because it's taken up that space, it acts really weird. So what we want to do is segregate it out a little bit. So we're going to just get rid of that label by hitting delete, and we use a container in there instead. So we're going to use a GDK box, put that in there, and as you notice here, the GDK box is in the vertical position, so it's going from down to up, or up to down, this way. We want to change that for this particular example to horizontal. Now we're going left to right or right to left, and for this example I only want 2 of these, so I'll change number of items to 2, so now we have a left and a right. And what happens here is when we run this, if there's nothing in this left or this right box, it shrinks itself to 0. So to show that a little bit better, if I put well, actually no, I'll just do the stack. So GDK stack, we're going to put on the right side, so I'll put that there. So now it's on that side, it's minimized itself there. You can just see it there. Here's our stack in the right hand side of the box. And then the next one we're going to do is the stack sidebar. And we're going to, so that's the right side of that GDK box, this is the left side, so we're going to put it there. So now you can see it's gone over to that side now. So if we go to stack, and I'm just going to expand it horizontally like that. If we go to sidebar, and now because we have this stack that we made, actually we better give it a name. There's our stack. There's our stack sidebar. We're going to give it the stack that we just made on the right hand side. So there it is there. Bang. So now we have the page number because it's obviously 1 in there. So we come back to the stack. We've got 1 item in there. We've got 1 page in there. And this is it here. Now we can put a control in there, but once again it will take up that whole area. So what we really want to do is put a container in there. The easiest way I've found for me while I'm learning this is the fixed container. So I'll put a fixed container there, give it stack. I'm going to call it fixed, and then on the packing you can call it the name. That's what will show up here. I'm just going to call it fixed for demonstration purposes. Fixed. I'll show you why in a sec. So now we have a stack with 1 item, but we want a second page. So we have a second page there, and then we go to this edit page. So we're going to the second page, it will highlight it there. And this one we're going to put a different container. I'm going to put a, let's try a grid. Put a grid there, and as you can see it's segregated into 9 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want to change that to maybe 5 by 5. So what I'm envisioning here is a button, a checkbox, label, or whatever you want there. So now when we put a control in, say a button, so this is a good way to demonstrate something here. A button there, right? So we put it in 1, 2, 3, 4th box along of that grid. The problem is because there's nothing in this grid or this grid or this grid, this is going to end up when we run it all the way back here. And I'll show you that now. Well, actually I won't show you that now, I'll just give this an ID, call this or stack grid. Grid, and that was the button I did there. That should have grid, and that's meant to be a button. Okay, so we haven't done any of the attributes here or changed the size or anything yet, but let's just run that. So we've got fixed, there's nothing there. Now we've got our grid. Notice how the click me's gone right over here to the left hand top because there's nothing else in these segregated grids. If we put something like a label here, we'll call it label grid, and we're going to put some text in here, some text. Now you see there's some text here, there's 2 spaces, and then there's a button there, and it's taken up that grid size. So one of the things I've been trying to work out is how we can keep it the same. So use these, it should equally space, but because there's nothing in there, it's still going to move this button to over here. Yeah, it's taken up the whole thing. So we take that off, let's see what that does. So we'll just do the columns and see what that does. We don't want the rows. Yeah, you want something like that. That's a bit better. So what it's done is it's taken the space from here to here and filled exactly half of it with that, half of it with that. Anyway, I digress. Let's add another page, and we're going to edit that page, and we're going to try a different, I haven't tried in all of these containers, but let's try a different type of container. Not sure what an aspect frame is, but we'll try that. Okay, let's see what this thing does. Yeah, I'm not sure what that does. Well, let's put a control in there and see if that... Okay, it takes up the whole thing. Maybe that wasn't a good frame to put in there, container to put in there. So let's try a different container. List box overlay. Oh, we'll stick with just the box. This is typically what you have on the Arco Linux Tweak tool. Vertical boxes, V boxes. They go on across like that, and you'll put in a label, start, and then the button on the end. So if I was to put a button, a label there. Where is this start thing here? You could work it like this, I would imagine. I'm going to give it oops, if I just increase the end, it should give us a label there, and then if we put a button, Not sure what that's about. Oh, label on a button there, okay. See what that looks like. No, I think I stuffed that up. Let's try that again. GDK box, bang. Let's try a horizontal so it goes this way. And let's put a label there and a button. No, sorry. A combo box text there and a button there. Okay. I want a 200, but I only want a 40. It takes up the whole screen. And that's the difference between, this is still what I'm trying to work out, is how to use these containers in the box method. However, if I go back to the fixed method, it's quite simply just a matter of putting a label here. Because it's a fixed container, I can move this wherever I want. So I can lay it out where I want. I can set this to the height and the width. And I can also some text here. Move that to where I want, and then I can add this one here. Once again, I can set the height and the width. And then I can move that around to where I want. Call that a combo box. ISOs, this is how I made that other one. And then put ISO-1, ISO-2, ISO-3, etc. And active item, we'll start with that. And then I'm going to put a button here. Can move it where I want. You can also go to packing and move it like this, minus and plus, for left and right, up and down. And then in common, I'll set the size here to 40, and I'll make that 150, and I'm just going to put it there. Like I said, you can move this around wherever. So now when we run that, because this is on a fixed container, it will stay in place. The only problem with this is that on a window manager, the screen becomes full screen like that, and it will just stay like that in that spot. It won't evenly distribute itself around. Whereas the grid expands as the main windows expands, and same as this. So on a floating window manager, on a window manager, you can, and set it to floating, you could select the GDK window and make it non-resizable by unchecking that box. So now when we run that, you can't grab the corner here and resize it. You can't double click to resize it, and you can't bring it here to resize it. That's on a desktop environment. On a window manager, I would imagine it will just resize to take up whatever space is remaining on the desktop. So you'd have to maybe set that to as one of the rules as floating, and then it would be quite easy to use this fixed container to add buttons and do whatever you want. And yeah, we'll stop there for now, and I guess the next bit will show you how to use this to put it, I'll just save it, to how to use this to load it in Python and show the GUI from Python. That's it for now.